46 of the Inland Empire Workers' Compensation Lawyer Livestream podcast. My name is Attorney Alexander Napolin. I'm joined by Attorney George Abato. We're California workers' compensation lawyers. And on this episode, we will be discussing working for agencies and workers' compensation injuries. So if you're out there and you work for an agency, which then assigns you to a company, you're going to have a little bit different of a situation than if you just work directly with that company. That's what we're discussing today. So if you're out there, you work for an agency and you've been injured, or you're concerned about your rights, you need to listen to this episode and see what we have to say and learn your rights. George, what is it that's different about agencies? What are agencies?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that a lot of our viewers and a lot of just the general and public, the public in general, isn't aware of what an agency is. So they might be confused when they go look for, maybe they see a billboard hiring. It could be an agency. What agencies do is they take in employees and they are their employees, but they send them out to do different work for different companies. These companies might not want to hire someone for something specific. They might want to have like maybe seasonal work that they can send them to go do, things like that. But what people need to understand is that you are technically hired by the agency and working for the agency. It doesn't matter if you're on location at, let's say, Amazon, or maybe you're doing some seasonal work at Macy's or wherever they send you. Macy's, Amazon, wherever you're working is not your employer. They are the contractor that uses the agency to get people in order to handle whatever job they need at that time. So what could happen also, Alex, is that you are working through an agency and they like you so much that now you become the employer. That's a different type of situation. But if you're just working through the agency at a different location, you have to understand that the agency is your employer. So that's one of the key things that I want people to understand today, and I'll explain why in a bit. But that's very, very important for them to understand.
Right. So you're going to an agency and they're helping you find work, and they're helping the company that needs the work find a worker quickly and
Correct.
fill that spot. And then the agency's covering your workers' comp benefits,
Right.
which is our discussion for today, and other employment benefits that you would get through an employer would be gotten through the agency. And then the company that the agency is contracting with, they're going to just get the labor.
Right. So I used to work for a large cell phone company, and I was a salesperson, but we had a greeter at the door, right? The greeter was not a Verizon Wireless employee. They were hired through an agency. The good thing with an agency and with an employer or a company that hires an agency to get them a person to work that job is that if they don't like that person, they can just tell the agency, listen, I don't like this particular individual, or they're not doing the job correctly, send me someone else. So maybe you might be at a location only one day and you might get a different assignment, right? But once again, what's important to understand is that you are not an employee of the assignment that you're at. You're an employee of the agency. The reason it's really important to know this is because if you do get injured, then you have to report it to the agency. Of course, if you're on location, definitely let someone know there, right? But ultimately, the agency will be the one providing you with the medical treatment and with the workers' compensation benefits. So that's really important to know. And if you do go talk to an attorney, you have to let them know that the agency is the employer. A quick scenario, Alex, and it's happened to me several times. We ask, but they're not sure about it, and they gave us the information and everything. But we file with an incorrect employer, right? So now we have to amend that application in order to include the agency and take the old employer that we had off. And I don't know if that's too technical for our viewers to understand, but what happens is if we point at the wrong person when we file your workers' compensation claim, we have to later on go and fix it. So we have to know who the correct employer is basically what I'm saying.
Yes, and for our viewers out there, you might have confusion if you work for an agency on who your employer is and how you get your workers' compensation rights, because there are agencies out there who are, flying under the radar. Maybe they don't have workers' compensation insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe they're not telling you how to file a claim and you're just confused. You work for an agency, you're injured at a job site, you don't know what to do. You can dial the injury helpline. That's why we're here. That's why we're having this discussion, is to let agency workers know that you do have a right to workers' compensation benefits, just like normal employees in California do. And if you're not getting the benefits that you need, you need to contact an attorney. You can dial the injury helpline. You can reach either George or I for a free consultation, 844-984-8414. You can dial that number and get a free consultation. Now, you could be injured in any way that a normal employee could be injured. It's just you're going to deal with these technical things that you might not understand. Which employer, which insurance carrier, what are my rights? That's why you get a lawyer on board.
Correct. Yeah, and the problem is when, let's say you get hurt at a construction site when you were sent there by an agency, and you go and tell them, and they say, no, you got to talk to the agency. You go talk to the agency, and someone there doesn't want to take responsibility, and they tell you, well, that's where you got hurt. So did you report it to them? Now you go back there. You don't know what to do, and you decide, listen, I don't even want to get in trouble. It seems like it's going to be a huge hassle, and you just kind of stop. And that's what we don't want. We want you to know your rights. We want you to know your options and just how to go about doing things. So as we always say, talk to an experienced attorney and just let them know what your situation is. Every situation is different, but they will let you know your rights and what benefits you qualify for, because there's a lot of them that you might not know.
Now, there was an agency out here in the Inland Empire called Barron HR. And I don't know if you've heard of this agency, but Barron HR didn't have any insurance for many years. And I've actually heard on the workers' compensation calls, because we hear the other hearings going on,
right,
that Barron HR is still dealing with uninsured claims from way back when they didn't have insurance. So if you're out there and you worked for Barron HR or you worked for another agency and they didn't have insurance, you can file an uninsured employer claim. Yeah. And you can actually go for the super employer. So that the workers' compensation insurance of the company you're working for would cover you if your agency has no insurance. Because the company that you're assigned to can't just get away with hiring an agency that doesn't have workers' compensation insurance. Right. The law actually will push you onto the company's insurance that you're of the job site you're working at. So if you're out there and your agency's just not giving you the information, maybe they don't have insurance at all. It's very rare, but it does occur. And then you need to call the injury helpline, 844-984-8414, and either reach myself or George for a free consultation. We'd be happy to speak with you.
Yeah. And once again, we want to make the point that insurance, workers' compensation insurance, is a must-have for employers in California. Okay, so I rented a car a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me, do you want this insurance? Do you want wind insurance? Do you want sunlight insurance? All kinds of ridiculous stuff. And I was obviously denying all of it, but, you know, I was thinking to myself, oh my Lord, what if something crazy happens and it's the one time I don't have insurance? That insurance you can decline. Workers' compensation, if you're employed, your employer should have that insurance, and you should be aware of that, okay? So
now, this is something that comes up. Are you an employee or an independent contractor?
Right.
It's something we've discussed before. It's a big topic for Uber and Lyft drivers these days.
Yeah.
Who are classified as independent contractors because of Proposition 22, which makes them independent contractors, despite the fact that the Department of Industrial Relations and the Supreme Court have said that they are employees under Assembly Bill 5.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. Then
that's coming up.
It's coming up. We're getting into that because it's going to be a couple videos, because I feel it covers a lot of people out there. I mean, I could throw a stone in Southern California and hit a non-working actor that is driving Uber or Lyft, right? Or just people that want to make extra money. And not only those, Alex. I mean, that's how it started, right? Uber and Lyft. But now everyone gets their groceries delivered. You know, right. You get your food delivered. So it's not something that only affects Uber and Lyft drivers. It's also all those types of services.
DoorDash, Postmates, those delivery services. If you're out there, you're an independent contractor. That means that you're paying your own self-employment taxes. So when you work for an employer, you withhold money on your paycheck, Medicare, Social Security, and some state taxes, federal taxes. Your employer has to match some of those things and pay in. But when you're working for yourself, you pay those yourself at the end of the year on your taxes. So not only are you paying more taxes, you're not getting workers' comp, you're not getting a minimum wage. There's a lot of things you don't get as an independent contractor. And that's why it looks like Proposition 22 is going to be held unconstitutional. There's a court judgment by a judge in Alameda County that struck down Proposition 22 as unconstitutional because the California Constitution gives the legislature full authority to enact a comprehensive workers' compensation system and say who gets workers' comp and who doesn't as an employee in California. And Proposition 22 clearly, according to all the law professors, according to the smart judges out there, just infringes on that right of the legislature.
Would you call it overreaching?
I call that an overreach.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of that battle right now. There was some oral argument that was heard in December of 2022, and we're waiting for the appellate court to make a decision. I'm sure it will go up to the Supreme Court of California after that. But at some point, I do believe that Uber and Lyft drivers will become employees entitled to workers' comp insurance. Now, that's a little off topic. It's something coming up.
It's off topic, but it's all great information, because imagine how many injuries drivers might have, not only with collisions and auto accidents, but just driving all day. What if you're driving an 8-hour shift? That's sitting down. How many breaks do they have? Do they have to park and get a break? I mean, it's just a lot of issues that are going to arise, I think.
How many cumulative trauma injuries are we going to file?
Oh, yeah.
So just if you're out there and you're driving for Uber or Lyft, and you've been doing it a long time, one day it's just going to click over and you need to dial the injury helpline, 844-984-8414, and call us and let us help you with those benefits. And if you're an agency worker out there and you have questions, of course, that's the topic of today's discussion. You have questions, you call us, we give you a free consultation. And remember, hiring a workers' compensation attorney is very affordable. It's only 15% contingency fee. And at the end of all of it, the employer and their insurance company have to pay for all the medical bills in addition to the money that you receive, which is unlike a personal injury case where all the bills and all the costs and all of the filing fees come out of your portion.
Yeah.
No filing fees for injured workers.
Yeah.
Very affordable service. So if you're out there and you have questions, give us a call. Our number is 844-984-8414. And I think that will conclude our discussion for today, unless you have something to add, George.
No, I don't. I think the takeaway for today is find out who your employer is. You're with an agency. Are you employed with them? Did you already get employed by the person who you're working for through that agency? Like I said, you could have gotten employed by the place you're working at, whether it be Amazon or any construction company, anything else. They could employ you and take you away from the agency. But if not, then the agency is responsible for your workers' compensation injury.
I know a lot of people who work for agencies are probably concerned about reporting injuries because they're working for another company and they need the agency to continue to get work, and that could become a concern. So if you've been working for multiple employers and you develop a cumulative trauma and you just can't do it anymore, you need to watch out for yourself, because the agency will use and abuse, they'll churn and burn. You're just a number, and you need to watch out for yourself. So call a lawyer if you have questions.
Love it. Till next time.
Till next time.